importance of the aftermath.
Yes, I said, above all, get them thinking about what next.
We'll see everybody tomorrow.
Well, the secretary...
As I said, we'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
I know you can't wait, and neither can I.
Okay.
And neither can the Prime Minister, for that matter. I appreciate his advice, I appreciate his counsel, and I appreciate his friendship.
If Mr. Blair did counsel the president about the need to focus on the aftermath of the invasion, he seems to have made little impact. In July that year, Mr. Blair was again warned, this time by the Cabinet Office. In particular, little thought has been given to the aftermath and how to shape it. An American view of Mr. Blair's priorities emerged during a role-playing exercise that month about the aftermath at the US Army War College in Pennsylvania. Most of the participants were US government officials. One of Britain's leading Iraqi experts had been invited by the CIA.
They chose, quite rightly, an American to play the role of the British, and he said that his main task, getting into the role, was to make sure that he was always at the top table. In other words, he didn't care, really, what the Americans were up to, what their petty squabbles were, anything at all, just as long as the British were always there, as long as the door wasn't shut in their face. And I thought that was pretty accurate, but others did too at the time. So the notion was, in other words, that the British had no policy agenda as such, but they did have an agenda which would be putting the American relationship at the top of any agenda they ever had.
Saddam Hussein caught the world by surprise today by inviting weapons inspectors back into Iraq.
And I have to say, there are key people in the administration here who believe that the time of the inspectors has passed.
It'll take more than this to head off America's war plans.
In August, the president was briefed on plans for the invasion. They were well advanced. The period for the aftermath was described simply as unknown. Colin Powell thought not enough attention was being paid to this. Over dinner at the White House, Powell is reported to have warned the president that if he invaded Iraq, he would own it, but he might not be able to fix it. You are going to be the proud owner of 25 million people. You will own all their hopes, aspirations and problems. It's going to suck the oxygen out of everything. Do you think that Colin Powell was working for a different outcome, that he thought that war was a bad idea, in fact?
Yes, I do. And I think he was still harboring an idea that diplomacy, inspections, and all of that might just bring some kind of result that would obviate the need to go to war.
Prime Minister's warning on Iraq, Saddam poses a very real threat to Britain.
That this is the UN's moment of truth. If it fails to act, America will.
Now, the regime here is saying that it is not a threat, that it doesn't want to fight, but that it will fight back if it has.
On the eve of Mr. Blair's next Iraq summit with the president, he was again sent a warning from the British ambassador to Washington.
I remember sending a report to London just before the Prime Minister turned up for his Camp David meeting, saying planning for the aftermath is a blind spot. I think that was the phrase I used, blind spot. And I said a number of other things as well, but on that, I remember thinking to myself, we're nowhere on this.
Yet how to create a new and stable Iraq, Bush and Blair's ultimate objective of the invasion, doesn't seem to have been high on the agenda, if at all.
It's my honor to welcome the Prime Minister back to Camp David. I look forward to spending a good 3 hours talking to our friend.
Mr. Blair's priority was to persuade Mr. Bush to go to the UN, to seek their support for an invasion, to help him win the political battle raging back home.
Any excuse to bomb Iraq!
Any excuse to bomb Iraq!
Tony Blair, shame, shame!
Tony Blair, shame,
The case against Saddam. He has the weapons and he's ready to use them. The dossier says he can fire mass destruction weapons in 45 minutes.
Hello and welcome to the BBC's News at 1 o'clock. Tony Blair's been outlining the reasons why his government believes Saddam Hussein poses a threat to world stability.
Iraq has more chemical and biological weapons than previously thought, and it's trying to develop nuclear ones.
The four-star general in charge of drawing up the invasion plan was Tommy Franks. To avoid getting bogged down in complex and costly nation-building afterwards, Franks was required by the US Defense Secretary to give America a light footprint in post-war Iraq, by which Donald Rumsfeld meant troops should be rapidly withdrawn. This was beginning to alarm some British military planners. In the autumn of 2002, General Tim Cross made several trips to US Central Command, CENTCOM, in Florida.
I was uneasy with a lack of long-term thinking. And I think it was associated too with a general feeling that I got from CENTCOM and subsequently that overall there was no need for a long-term plan for reconstruction because the Iraqi people would reconstruct the nation.
That was the assumption.
That was the assumption. And in essence, therefore, the plan, the long-term plan was we do not need a plan.
General Franks is said to have told Rumsfeld, "You pay attention to the day after, I'll pay attention to the day of." Not that Rumsfeld thought the day after needed much attention. And nor, it seems, did the President's National Security Advisor, Condoleezza Rice.
I remember being given a bit of a lecture by Condoleezza Rice, who said it was patronizing and condescending to suggest the Iraqis were not capable of running democratic institutions. And all this other, if you like, this other stream of thought on Iraq was posited on the notion that coalition forces would be greeted as liberators. The shackles of Saddam would be thrown off, and they'd be setting up parliaments and constitutional arrangements, and so on and so forth, and we could gracefully withdraw, having got rid of a bad man.
To ensure that America did withdraw quickly, Donald Rumsfeld wanted his Department of Defense, not Colin Powell's State Department, to frame post-war policy. Rumsfeld set up a special unit run by his Undersecretary of Defense, Douglas Feith. General Franks, in charge of the day of, was not a fan of the man handling the day after. The dumbest motherfucker on the face of the earth was how Franks is said to have described Feith.
What do you make of Douglas Feith?
An idiot. A man who comes into the room with all sorts of bona fides. A man who, when he met reality, his brilliance crumbled and everyone around him crumbled. I have said before, I never met a dumber man. I think Tommy Franks said something to that effect too, although he used a little profanity. And I think he was incredibly incompetent at the heart of the Defense Department, and especially at the heart of the post-war planning for Iraq.
The British Foreign Secretary Jack Straw shared Colin Powell's fear about just how difficult it would be to create a free and stable Iraq. They talked and plotted often.
I mean, Jack was very proud of the fact that